Welcome to the Everything Drug and Alcohol channel. We kindly request that you support us by liking, subscribing, commenting, and sharing this channel. If you have any suggestions for potential guests, please email federaldrugtesting@gmail.com. Additionally, for FAA or HHS DER courses, we invite you to visit www.federaldrugtestingservices.com. I appreciate your interest in our work. This channel, however, does not officially endorse any products or services. Without further ado, let's get to the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another YouTube interview on everything drug and alcohol. And that includes everything. When I say everything, I mean everything. So if you're new to the channel, do know that I talk about everything in the drug and alcohol industry. That's testing, that's substance abuse, new technology and changes, celebrity interviews, industry professionals. So it just covers a wide variety of topics and individuals and personalities. So one of the things that I do know about the industry is that it's ever changing, right? It's ever changing. The technology is forever changing, and it's just constantly evolving. So today we're going to talk about one of the new innovative changes that is taking the industry by storm and is just growing and growing. So it's going to be very interesting for my agencies that are out there, regardless of where you are, the military, well, probably not the military, federal at this point, but majority of all of you companies out there do a lot of non-DOT professional drug testing, and so oral testing as well, and that is on the rise. So one of the innovative processes could really help you guys, and we're going to talk about that. And here with me is the VP of Business Development, Global Employer Care, Andreas Klotz, and we're going to talk about that. And he is with NOVIR, and welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Greg. Really appreciate the opportunity to be with you, to be with your YouTubers here today, and to bring, our innovative virtually, proctored drug testing solution to the masses. And it's really exciting. It's been several years in the making, and having, a lot of history in the industry like yourself, it has been ripe for change, especially from a non-DOT perspective. And like you said, it's taking a lot of interest from organizations across a variety of vertical markets. So really appreciate the opportunity to come together with you to bring more of this information to your listeners.
All right, well, I appreciate you. I met you at IFDAT, the International, is it Federation of Foundations? Oh, Foundation, right?
Yeah, it's a international organization. I guess you would call them a bunch of SMEs, right? Subject matter experts.
Yeah.
A concentrated group of people who are, the be and end all and are fully ensconced in the drug testing industry. So it was great to meet you there. We had a chance to kind of introduce it to you and to the masses there. Spoke about, the program, and you alluded to oral fluid or saliva. It really is taking on a lot of attention, probably because of the changes in the drug laws, specifically marijuana. But I think employers are more interested in knowing about whether that employee or potentially that applicant may be, quote, under the influence versus maybe what they did a few weeks ago. So it's taking on a lot of interest, and that's what our technology is laced together with, is oral fluid testing.
So what actually is NOVIR?
So NOVIR is a company that was born, I would say, out of the digital healthcare age and recognition of how digital healthcare can become the tip of the spear, call it a new pre-care pathway, and just to be able to deliver healthcare differently. And when NOVIR was born, it was born right before the pandemic, so say March 2020, and the company pivoted quickly into, what you could do to screen, the population during the pandemic, to vaccinate the population during the pandemic. And through that, a lot of education that, happened during that time was extracted. And I think there's a couple of principles we as a company that did a lot of both vaccinations and testing, hundreds of thousands of events and people. One was that we did a lot of self-testing ourselves. We had that swab, right? And that swab then was taken, and that sample was put into like a cassette, and that's what we call a lateral flow assay in the industry. And the other thing I think that happened during that time is we're doing kind of what a Zoom call is. People were connecting with their providers during that time. That's how business was being conducted. And then third, how people were connecting with those providers via proctors. So we took that away as far as that experience is concerned. We worked with some consultants in the industry and third party. Specifically, let's get an bird's eye view from HR and talent acquisition professionals and environmental health and safety professionals, and ask them if they could have something different, what would it be? And pretty much to a T, they all said greater accessibility and visibility into the process. And that's kind of been our market value proposition as we got started to develop the program, and now are taking it to the market at scale.
It's interesting because when I was walking around the sponsor area, when I ran into you guys, I was like, man, this is interesting. I've heard, we hear about these things in the industry, but we never run across you guys, right? Unless you're at a sponsor event. And I just found it interesting because from a federal perspective, I'm looking at things as from the challenging portion of it, right? Like, how would this work on the federal side? But then when I realized, okay, you guys are more non-DOT, then it made a lot of sense to me. Are you guys ever going to try to cross over into the federal process, or is that a little more intricate, complicated because of the regulations?
I'll use the metaphor. It's a long putt, you know. Um, how oral fluid and how all those discussions kind of came to be. There's that quarterly DTAP meeting, and those are the people that really are the ones that are inspiring, change within the Department of Health and Human Services and the DOT. And those discussions, I kind of call them parking lot discussions. That's kind of where it begins. That's where the dialogue starts. So I'm going to be contributing, to those discussions, as DOT finally implements oral fluid top to bottom, laboratories are brought online, devices are approved, and the actual samples are being taken. Um, it's a long putt, but we're going to stay involved. We're going to stay engaged because I believe much of what is said about how collections are done in person, specifically oral fluid, can be translated into a virtual environment. We thought at first that it would be easy to go from in person to virtual. Little did we know it was actually quite challenging. So we failed fast, but we corrected, and that's how we got to where we are today in a short period of time. I mean, no one knew who NOVIR was. I have several decades of experience in the industry, like yourself, and that's helped, with bringing the program along. But it will stay in the mind's eye of the people, that are at the forefront of the language that's being written, in the realm of, the regulated modes of transportation. So I will stay engaged, and we will stay engaged to see it through.
So I know we were laughing earlier about your YouTube video that I'm not gonna pull up, but I know if somebody went and pulled it up, in the beer in YouTube, they're gonna find it, and it's probably old. So you want to get a disclaimer out there for it, so when people go do their Google search on you,
They
uh,
definitely should. Definitely should refer to your YouTube channel instead of that one. And then I'll just say this: Sinatra did all his takes. He gave himself one take. I gave myself maybe three, and that's what you got.
so I do want to point out if you guys do go to YouTube and you pull the video up, just pay attention, not of the it's outdated video because I'm just laughing with Andreas right now about it. But look at the individual who has the technology. So can you explain exactly what is going on in that video when they do actually see it, as far as
Hmm.
the technology portion of it and what's
Yeah,
going on?
I'll give you a condensed version. So we're using oral fluid, and oral fluid lends itself um, so that it can be conducted in a virtual way. Our proctors are they're trained to conduct a collection virtually. So in the realm of how collections are being trained on the DOT side, work with a number of people who are, approved, trained collectors. And then those people that train the collectors call it train the trainer kind of thing. And so we've tried to take that and emboss that, on the process that we conduct virtually. So this kit that we've developed, there's a rapid oral fluid drug test associated with that kit. That's the initial screen that we go through with the candidate. And then, if need be, there's a secondary kit associated, oral fluid, like a laboratory accepted device that's in that kit. So if we have to do it after call it a non-negative screen, we have that second collection device then that can be sent to the laboratory. But this overarching, process is always done within the purview of the proctor. So they're always observing, and we're setting up the candidate for success with checks and balances in advance, of the event. They're able to schedule their event on our portal, which they select then from a time that's convenient. So no longer are you, restricted to the whole 8 to 5 time frame that you see from collection sites. You can do it in the comfort of your own home. You can do it at a time that's convenient for you. And once it's set up, you come into that event with our proctor, and they walk you through it step by step. Start with the oral rapid device. It takes 30 seconds to collect. It will show you a result in a little over a minute. And for all intents and purposes, we could be done right then and there. About 7 minutes later, that can be uploaded into the system, and the talent acquisition or the HR professional, or for utilizing this use case for post incident, the health and safety director, they're all going to be able to see those results in as little as 7 minutes. Now, if we have a non-negative with the rapid, we conduct a secondary oral fluid collection, and once that's done, this kit self contains everything that's needed to take it and send it to the lab, i.e., the vial that the sample would go into, a tamper evident security seal, the bio bag, and the shipping bag with the shipping label on it. And it gets picked up by USPS at their address. So we're not asking anybody to drop that package off at, a FedEx or any of the other approved locations that FedEx does. But on top of this whole experience, we've digitized it. So in the realm of the custody control form and chain of custody, that paper process, even though they've gravitated towards an electronic version, ours is fully digitized. So there is no paperwork involved. We are serializing our kit, so that the sample maintains its connection with the digital chain of custody. Much like you do with a DocuSign event, you sign your name digitally, as does the collector, and then it's sent to the lab, and the person at the lab who's the accessioner signs it into the lab. So we've cleared the path of any paperwork, of anything else that a person would need to do to go to a clinic where it's invasive, it's impersonal, and that experience changes dramatically when you can do this in the comfort of your own home. You can get it done in 10 minutes or less. How does that reflect differently on the employer when you act as their ambassador? And in this hyper competitive environment of trying to hire candidates these days, any edge we can give back to HR and talent acquisition is going to separate them from the pack when they're presenting a verbal offer and then they're asking them to go get their drug test done. They're going to have visibility into that whole process. It's almost like a milestone tracker where when they place the order with us, they'll be able to see that order was received, and then as it progresses to delivery status, They get the tracking information. They'll see when it arrives at the candidate's address, and they're going to see when the candidate schedules their event and when it's completed. And if needed, oh, it might have to go to the laboratory. We take it, I think, a step further when the confirmation process is needed. We're going to have that sample rescreened and then confirmed. That eliminates a lot of the trepidation in the industry regarding false positives. And if you are still quantitatively positive after that confirmation, we'll get an MRO involved. And the MRO will contact the donor to find out if there's a biomedical reason if they tested positive. So, just to kind of sum up, this is all done in the purview of our proctor at your location, at home, or if the employer prefers, we can do it directly in their locations. But at the end of the day, it's a completely different experience, different level of accessibility into the process, and it's simply much more efficient. So that's kind of what we've done to innovate the industry and deliver, a solution that really is revolutionary.
So the can you see your InstaCLEAR?
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain what this is to those who are not familiar with oral or saliva testing?
So I'll get a little geeky. I'll dive into the device, which is inside that kit. So how you schedule your event, you see a QR code on the kit. You scan the QR code or enter the URL, takes you to the landing page. But once you open that kit, inside you'll find a foil pouch with an oral fluid device in it. So we've taken great care to determine what we are going to present to a candidate in a virtual environment. And you've heard me say before, we want to set them up for success. So if I look at all the other rapid oral fluid devices on the market today, they require somewhere between 1 to 2 mLs of specimen to properly activate the device. That can take upwards of 4 to 5 minutes to collect. And then the sponge that's used to collect the saliva, well, it's an artificial sponge so that when you do insert it into the device, it's sticky. Saliva is a sticky substance, doesn't release very easily. So it takes another 4 to 5 minutes for it to fully activate. In a virtual environment, that is an eternity. And the device we have, it's much more efficient. It's a cotton swab. It only requires zero point 0.2 mLs of saliva to activate the device. So you can imagine 30 seconds of collection and we're done. And you take that swab, you insert it into the device, and it will render a decision in a little over 1 minute. So it's dramatically different in terms of the experience and the efficiency as it relates to the collection process. And then we tie it off because 95% of the time we can say confidently that people are going to be negative, just demographically speaking. But it's the other 5-10% we want to be able to service there as well. So there's a secondary device within the InstaCLEAR kit that's lab admissible. And that's what I was referring to before. It's also a saliva device, but it has a cotton swab. So it lends itself for the picking up of THC, which is a sticky substance. And we need to be as efficient as possible so that when that saliva hits the device, it can release itself from the buffering agent, and then that goes into the vial, gets sent to the laboratory. So it's self-contained. Everything you need to conduct the collection is within the kit.
And this is the kit, or is
Yeah,
there?
yeah, yeah, correct.
Okay. So when you have like individuals that are remotely, especially the first thing came to my mind when I was talking to you about this was especially like a lot of airlines, right? They have individuals all over, especially outside of US territories, and a lot of them do non-DOT, testing as well. So what would be the turnaround time to get one of these to them if someone is remote?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's interesting because the laws we have in the U.S. regarding the FAA, excuse me, are not the same as you would see in the rest of the world regarding pilots. and then ground crews, what have you. But turnaround times, if we're talking U.S. domestic, the kit is going to be in that candidate's hands in less than 2 days, normally 1 day. We conduct it right then and there with them, and it gets reported out. If it needs to go to the laboratory, the kit is designed for priority express mail, so it gets there, the next day. The laboratory rescreens and confirms it. If it has to go to the MRO, add another day. So conservatively, 3-4 days domestically. Now, if we're talking internationally, we've developed the logistics so that we can confidently say if we send a kit directly to a person in, let's just say, Heathrow in London, they're going to see that kit arrive within 3 to 4 days. We conduct it just like I was talking to you about before, like you and I are talking via Zoom. We're going to see that kit develop the result. 90-95% of the time it's negative, we're done. And if it requires a secondary collection, it's all right then and there, and we complete the process. Then we have logistics pick the kit up directly where that person is located. It gets sent back to the States. We'll see it here in the next 3 to 4 days, and then it gets screened by the lab. So, internationally speaking, it's commonplace to see, testing events take 3-4 weeks, sometimes longer, and we're getting it down to just over a week, I think, conservatively speaking. There's other options and how we can conduct that to accelerate the process, but this is a individual kit leaving our door here in the US, traveling to most points around the globe, them, going through the proctoring process with us, and then if it need be, being sent back to the laboratory. Inside that 7 to probably 10-day time frame is when we can have it completed. There is one other option, and that's we send kits to a location, and then those kits are distributed from that location in country. That definitely cuts down on the turnaround time. We do that, for manufacturers here across the U.S. And across the globe when they want to conduct a post-incident or say a reasonable suspicion scenario. They can call us anytime, 24/7 on demand, and we will answer the phone and conduct that event for them, and we'll have it completed in about 30 minutes. So if it does happen at 2 a.m., of course, there isn't a collection site available, and you need to wait those 6 hours until it opens up, and the supervisor has to go with the employee, has to maybe go with the driver, to a clinic. You don't have to do that anymore with our kit. It's done immediately post-incident, and it's conducted right then and there at the employer's address. So, like I said, we can send kits in quantities to any location so that we can speed up the process when it comes to the initial proctoring, and then, if need be, the return of that package then to the laboratory. So sorry for the diatribe, but I wanted to give you a good level sense of what it's like globally, for us to be able to service anybody, anywhere.
Well, actually, you answered my question because I had it running in my head about one of the things is actually having it in bulk, right? Especially like in these remote locations, even in the US, having them in bulk, right? Available to do the post incidents or the reasonable suspicion, things that doesn't fall under the DOT testing guidelines that they still want to test individuals and, just employers, period, right? And especially with the international market, to be able to have those testing kits available on those sites. And I guess they would just have to then go to your website, link and ask for a proctor, right? To
Yep.
to
Yep.
do the process.
It's as little as it's as simple as the QR code, scanning the QR code, or entering the URL in. It takes you to the landing page and what you need to do to schedule your event. It's really just that simple.
And that is when you say you're talking about this right here, right?
That's correct.
Okay. What is the shelf life?
So the devices themselves have an 18-month shelf life, but given the fact that we're going to be sending in bulk to employers, we manage our kits on a 12-month basis. And then typically we advise that we could send the kits out on a quarterly or biannual basis. That really cuts down on, the time frame that that kit sits on the shelf. So we just conservatively say, 12 months, knowing full well that, the kits are good for at least 18 months.
And I guess that helps to cut down any concerns of, nothing becomes a problem until it's a positive or a refusal and accident or something was to say, well, this was on the shelf for however many periods of time. So if you cut that shelf life down, then it makes all the sense to do it that way, as far
Hmm.
as 12 months versus pushing it to actual 18.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
All right. This is very interesting. So how do people get a hold of you or
Well,
NOVIR? How do they get started if they're interested?
if you will surface my email with everybody, that would be great. My email is aklotz at novir-usa.com. Feel free to call me at 414-914-4209. And otherwise, you can just go to our website, which is the half of my email. That'll take you directly to the website, and you can navigate through to the drug testing information. But either way, look us up, give us a call. We'd love to speak with you about the innovation. It has resonated loudly through a variety of vertical markets, many different use cases, those use cases that we're still discovering because, employers' needs are different and they're asking, us, could we support this or can we support that? And so, we like to say yes because this innovation and this technology really does lend itself to being able to say yes more often, and we're excited about that. And it does give, I think, the industry a different talking point when it comes to how you do what you do from a drug testing perspective. It doesn't have to be one of those, well, just don't want to have that kind of conversation, right? Just,
Right.
I'll say one more thing. You get an offer, Greg, someone makes an offer to you verbally and you're like, great, this feels good, I'll take it. And then they say, you got to go get a drug test done. And it's someplace pretty far away. And they don't schedule you, right? They don't take an appointment. You got to just show up and maybe they get to you in an hour or two. It's just invasive. It's impersonal. Think about being able to do this in the comfort of your own home and it gets done in 10 or 15 minutes. It's just dramatically different.
So what advice would you give a company who, and I know you've been doing this for a while, to get ahead of the challenges that you've seen that they can go ahead and kind of rectify on their end before kind of getting with a company like you to get this process, in their, system to use. So
Mhm.
what can they do ahead of time?
Well, everybody has a different, call it pain point. I think we can draw some similarities across what those pain points are. We always want to discover what those pain points are, ahead of time. And sometimes those pain points are, drug testing policies that were written many, many years ago. And so what they're dealing with is, something that's outdated. They're screening for drugs that aren't even manufactured anymore. And being able to take that policy, bring it into the 21st century. We can assist, in being able to provide them with a resource to be able to augment their policies so that, they can test for oral fluid. One example that is really, causing employers to have to change is the use of marijuana, whether it be recreational, whether it be medicinal. State laws are changing. And some of the state laws no longer allow you to test for the metabolite. The only way you're going to get THC tested in urine as a modality is through the metabolite. So oral fluid is the new norm for being able to test the parent of THC. So our devices test for the parent of THC, and that gives the employer, a knowing edge that they're fulfilling that obligation. They're abiding, by those state laws, and we can assist with kind of clearing the path, make the way, towards what it takes to adapt, these new technologies so that it meets the the laws that are changing in the environment. I would say, Greg, the other thing is, we are on a quest towards educating, and it's that constant, barometer that we are, kind of hitting every single day on, what we can do to bring the message to the marketplace. This is a great example of it. Totally grateful for the chance to be here with you and your listeners. But, adoption only comes through education. And for people who want to know what this is really like, we give them the opportunity to actually go through a demonstration. So ad nauseum, we will send kits all over the place, give people to the chance to go through and see what it's actually like as far as the event is concerned. Proofs in the pudding, that whole experience lends itself towards them making that decision. So vigilance, above all, and being able to deliver what employers need, what they're asking on a day in and day out basis. So long-winded answer to your question, but it really does require all of that.
And it has to begin with the policy, and that's one of my things as well. Is policy is key. And for those who do not have a non-DOT testing, you know, process that want to implement it, they should probably start there first, right? How do we
Yeah.
incorporate the non-DOT into our system? And now that oral is a viable option, it's always been for, kind of with non-DOT, but how do you integrate non-DOT when a DOT person fits a non-DOT situation? Is this a viable option for them? And it does begin with policy.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
So what I want to say is, what would you like to leave everybody with?
We're excited about just bringing the message out to everybody, and in every which way we can. The use cases that I talked about here today, they keep stacking up. And we started with just a pre-employment thought process and how we can improve, pre-employment. And then it gravitated towards, say, a hiring fair, being able to support a hiring fair, with our technology. Then it gravitated towards the opportunity to really change how reasonable suspicion and post-incident testing is done, standardizing it, giving it, dependability, consistency, predictability. That's next level in something that had zero of that. No, it was kind of like the ugly stepchild in drug testing is when you have to deal with those situations. In an OC health setting, like I alluded before, if they're not taking any appointments for people that come into their clinics, and we can say to an OC health provider, bring this person over to this laptop, they can sit down with us, we can go through the proctored session. They no longer, well, they'll call them medical assistants or LPNs, they no longer have to deal with those situations, and we can conduct it for them, whether they have it scheduled or not. They can just go into the system and say, let's proctor now, and we do it for them right then and there. So all these use cases keep evolving, and we want to know, from everybody out there, what is it that pains them regarding their drug testing policy or their program, and what we probably can do to alleviate some or all of that consternation. Um, that it's the communication, it's the dialogue that I look forward to having with as many people that are engaged in the drug testing industry. Talking to subject matter experts is one thing, but being on the front lines, with the employers and all the other types of groups that we're talking to really understand what we can do to up their game and deliver next level type of service.
So one last question for you before we go. How do one become a proctor?
It's a great question. So we've given it some structure, some serious structure. Um, there's a curriculum that we've developed, and that curriculum is very very rigid in terms of what you have to learn from us. Let's call it a script standpoint. And then when something could potentially go awry, what have we prepared the proctors to be able to do to deal with those situations. So it is the type of person that has a an attitude towards engaging with people is important. But, learning is the key because as an organization, we're constantly, learning. And when you become a proctor, just like you do when you become a quote collector, you know, there's always something new that happens.
Right.
it's, it's,
It's
even somebody,
ongoing.
it's ongoing. Even somebody who's been doing it for 20 years can say, you won't believe what happened today. This is the first time this happened to me. And it's that mindset you have to have, as a proctor. They're problem solvers in essence. And that's the type of person that we're looking for. But ultimately, going through that curriculum, going through training, going through how many times you need to, watch an existing proctor, an experienced proctor, go through the event, and then being put in that seat yourself. And those are two very different situations. But ultimately, they get vetted to be able to proctor on their own. And then they also get vetted to be able to proctor remotely themselves. So, and I've taken that mindset, like I said before at the beginning of our talk, from trainers who are training collectors to conduct, collections in person today. But that same mindset and that same structure, we adopt towards training our proctors.
Okay, so if someone is interested in being a proctor, they can just go to the website and
Under careers and yeah, contact us. We'd love to talk with them.
yeah, because I thought about that when I was looking at your thing, and it's like 24/7. I was like, man,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are a global company, so we work
time
across
zones.
all time zones. Hmm.
Yeah. I deal with that as well when my clients believe if they're working, I'm working. So it's just like in there across the different time zones. So
You
well, I
got
do
that right.
appreciate you, Andreas, for being on.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you, Greg.
I look forward to seeing your growth and you guys' grow. I think that virtual is a great option for companies. You know,
Yeah.
and one more thing before we leave, I don't want people to just assume that you guys do drug testing. So can you give a brief of what else you guys offer?
Yeah, so NOVIR is a dynamic, I think, organization that has an eye towards delivering healthcare in a different way. We've talked about the new pre-care pathway. So we, as an organization, are delivering vaccinations to the senior living market, and we're taking that senior living market and we're translating that experience into what can we do for, say, employers in that regard. So often, you hear the words wellness being utilized, and that getting employees to participate in wellness is a challenge for employers. And they're using data, claims data, to determine what type of population they have, and that claims data is what already has happened. We as an organization are wanting to become the tip of the spear. So, in conjunction with, a drug test, we want to be able to provide the employer with a biomedical test that gives them an understanding through the data that's driven and derived, and put into, an analytical software module that comes back to the employee or candidate and says, hey, you might have a proclivity towards diabetes, and or we can say you have higher cholesterol, what have you. And these are some of the things that really can impact insurance and claims ahead of the event actually happening. So that's the tip of the spear, the new pre-care pathway that we're trying to develop. Underserved markets, like senior living, underserved markets or demographics that need, say, lead testing done. These are some of the things that we're really passionate about, and that give NOVIR a real broad, identity into a marketplace where healthcare is struggling to connect the dots between provider, patient, and payee and payor. Right? We're trying to create a new way of being able to provide data that clears the path and makes it equitable for everybody.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't want that for people to just assume that you're just doing saliva virtual
Yeah.
testing because you guys offer so much more
Yeah.
over there.
Thank you for asking that.
Yeah, appreciate that. All right, Andreas. Well, you probably be getting some emails from people, and whether it's work or employment or business. So I'm quite sure they're going to reach out to you guys. And I enjoyed meeting you at IFDAT, and I'm sure we'll stay in touch and see how this is going. But let me know if there's anything I can do for you guys.
Likewise, Greg, I really appreciate the opportunity to be with you and your audience here today. It's always a joy being able to just to talk about what we know to be true. So I really appreciate it. Wish you all the best.
All right, same to you guys as well. All
All
right,
right.
have fun out there. Where are you guys at? You're in Wisconsin, right?
Yeah, we're Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Okay, is it cold?
Well, it's spring in Wisconsin, so it's a crapshoot. Some days maybe not so much, and some days we go, the sun is shining. Oh my gosh, we got to get outside.
Got to
So,
get outside. All right. Well, you guys have a good one out there, and I'll talk with you soon.
all right, take care.
All right.
Bye bye.
All right.